The offseason's over. Real football starts Thursday night. Chiefs are dropping a banner, and we're previewing Chiefs Lions. Let's go.
This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
It is a live game preview edition of the KC Laboratory presented by Emprise Bank, member FDIC. Thank you all so much for coming out, hanging out, listening, watching, consuming KC Sports Network. We appreciate everybody that is here. It means a lot, and it's really, really cool to see the support as we start this season. And it's a lot of fun to be here with both of my dear pals getting ready to preview a real football game that counts. And the only football game that counts on Thursday night. Maddie Lane, what's good?
Listen, it's great right now. We're coming off an amazing week 1 of college football. We are getting right into, with just 2 days off of no football, we are getting back into the Kansas City Chiefs, taking the field for the first game of the season. We could not be more ready for this, Craig. I know you're excited. I know you're pumped. How are you feeling, buddy?
I am feeling about as good as I can for a game where the Chiefs are potentially missing 2 of their best 3 players that we will get into here, but it's not going to matter. Spoiler alert.
Tony's back.
Oh, got it. Thank you. Thank you for telling me KT's back. Wait. Jerry Sneed? Oh, he's good
also
too. No, never mind. Run it back. Let's go, baby. No, I'm excited.
We don't like that mantra. Not a fan of that one. But no, you know what? I've kind of got like some juices flowing a little bit. Like I've got a little bit of adrenaline for this one. I'm kind of excited to be previewing a game that's actually going to matter. And like I feel like there's been so many distractions. Despite some people saying there hasn't been distractions, there's been a lot of distractions in Kansas City around this football team, and I hope it doesn't diminish or get in the way of something that's really going to be special tomorrow. Like, I know that there are 3 pillars of this organization on the football field, and 2 of them are probably not going to be playing or will be playing in a limited capacity. But man, tomorrow the Chiefs get to celebrate another Super Bowl in a full Arrowhead Stadium. And that's something that they didn't get to do the first time around, because, with COVID, like the field was, like the capacity was reduced significantly. This is going to be a special moment that I hope we all soak in. I know there's a lot of external factors, but before we get too far down the rabbit hole into this game, like I hope everyone takes a moment to appreciate how cool it is that the Chiefs are Super Bowl champions. They're the defending Super Bowl champions. And I know there's a lot going on, but make sure you celebrate what's going to be a pretty cool celebration of your city. Again, I know the draft was a celebration of your city. The world is watching Kansas City on Thursday night. So just make sure y'all are soaking it in. Let's get into this game preview. If you guys don't remember how we do it, if you're new, we do 3 storylines on offense, 3 storylines on defense. We'll do players to watch. That's brought to you by Tickets for Less this year. We do a score prediction at the end of the game. We are starting with the offensive side of the football. And there's obviously a big storyline on the offensive side of the ball, right?
You mentioned Tony.
Travis Kelce hyperextends his knee on Tuesday. Some terrifying thoughts go through the heads of Chiefs fans. Slowly but surely, information has come back. It's looking better and better for him. Now labeled as a bone bruise. Now labeled as questionable. There is at least a question of whether or not Travis Kelce will be able to play this game when just 24 hours ago, we expected him to maybe be missing a couple games. Trending in the right direction. That's good to hear, Maddie. Do you think I'm not asking you to speculate too much in if he plays, but...
Oh, I'll speculate.
Okay.
Okay, I'm no doctor, okay? So we'll get that out there. I'm no doctor. I have no information here on what Travis Kelce can or can't do. But from my understanding of the injury and the way it has gone, there is unlikely, not impossible, unlikely to be a significant risk to further the injury here if the swelling has gone down. If the swelling in his knee has gone down, it will become a lot more of a pain threshold management, and that can be very difficult. It can be so painful that he might not be able to run with his typical gait, right? And if that's the case, he's probably not going to play. I mean, I would just assume that. That being said, Travis Kelce's tough as hell. This guy gets beat up a lot and plays through a lot of stuff. I don't know how many people remember, but a few years ago, Mans couldn't even really turn his neck to see a football coming his way. He had to turn his whole body because everything was so locked up and sore. He had to turn his entire body back to the ball to try to catch it. If he physically can play, he will be out there. If it is 100% just a pain threshold problem for him, that questionable is going to play. How much he plays, how effective he is, whatever that is, that's a different discussion. But if his leg moves and allows him to run and even somewhat cut like normal, Travis Kelce's going to be on that field, Craig.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we think that Jason Kelce is trolling him a little bit? They're like, yeah, I had this happen and I played that week too, buddy. Hey,
Call
guess
him
what?
soft.
Yeah, call him soft. Like, if he doesn't play, that's going to be a must listen to. New heights there. No, I think that he's probably going to be limited. We're probably going to see maybe a call up for Matt Bushman, from the practice squad. That would make a lot of sense just to reduce some of the snaps that Travis Kelce has to play. But of the guys that are going to contribute in a significant way that try and make up for that, I think Sky Moore's arrows pointing up there. Like we talk about, guy operating in the middle of the field a little bit more, guy that's going to be able to try and, break off some of that stuff, be a third down target. I think this is the kind of the perfect time for him to show up on the scene, get a little bit more of the target share, become a little bit more of that guy. They know that if Travis Kelce's on the field, the Lions are going to give him an extra amount of attention anyway. If Travis Kelce is limited, maybe you don't look his way quite as often, even though he's Hall of Fame, best tight end ever. But use him more of as a distraction when he is on the field. Try and reduce some of that extra wear and tear on that knee a little bit more, because he's going to have a long gap before the next game. If he does play tomorrow, they can give him a little time to kind of recover there, but don't overdo it, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the 10-day gap's important. It might give him a little time to recover and maybe make it to through that week 2 game if everything goes okay. I think it's a fascinating thing to look through. I could see them. Look, they went through an entire game plan week, an entire game plan off season with Travis Kelce in mind for this game. Yeah. And literally right beforehand, you've got to try to figure some stuff out. So, I could see them maybe putting him on a pitch count. Maybe more third downs, obvious passing downs. They're going to get him involved. That could be something that we could see them doing. I wonder, how do you mitigate the loss of Travis Kelce? I mean,
you don't.
You don't. But who do you think could see more opportunities because of Travis Kelce's potential absence or potential limitations?
First thing you're going to do is look at tight ends and see how you can potentially replace what he lost out of a tight end. And you look at this Chiefs depth chart. Okay, Noah Gray will get a substantial boost to his snaps, but also his usage. And that'll be nice. It'll be nice to see what Noah Gray does in a more advanced receiving role, because they kind of use him as an outlet guy or a block and release guy in play action, right? So it would be nice to see what he does. But you look through the other tight ends, Blake Bell, calling up Matt Bushman or somebody else. I don't know if there's a lot of juice to squeeze there to replace Travis Kelce. So then the next thing you do is you go to look for how to replace him on those third downs, those money downs. You drafted Sky Moore in the second round. You drafted him there for a reason. You got him. You got his feet wet last year in all these different spots. You kind of hid his usage this year in the preseason. You didn't show teams how you wanted to use him. This has got to be it, right? Last year, if you didn't have Travis Kelce, if he was double teamed, your guy was Juju Smith-Schuster. That's who took over that spot. And he did it in small stretches when that happened. Who's that guy this year? It seems like it should be Sky Moore. So I think you might get a little bit of a Sky Moore game right off the rip. We might, as Chiefs fans, have a good idea of what kind of sophomore jump Sky Moore's about to take this year. Because if he doesn't come out of this game with if Kelce can't play or is limited, he doesn't come out of this game with 6, 7, 8 targets, that's not a good sign. he's the guy that should be kind of getting those reps over the middle of the field, out of the slot, working the second level, like working the intermediate areas of this defense. If he's not getting them, that's a little bit of a cause for concern.
It is. I'm very curious to see Noah Gray's usage. The Chiefs have ramped up that kind of zone insert with him, as that sniffer kind of coming across, filling in the A gap, clearing out a linebacker. He's been surprisingly good. Maybe not surprising. We knew he could block on the run, but has really held up well in those instances over the past couple of years now. Does Andy play off of that? Like, are they going to lean on some of that zone insert early and then have him kind of fake the block and release up the seam and try and hit some of these bigger plays? Are they going to have him kind of come across the line of scrimmage and then get out there into the flat, that they do with Kelsey sometimes? I just think it's going to be very interesting to see how they view Noah Gray. And I know that we've been talking about this guy for a long time here, what he can and what he can't do and how he's not Travis Kelsey. But we've been talking about replacing Travis Kelsey for a long time. This might be a glimpse into their belief in that guy and what he can do in this offense, the sorts of things that he can mix up and the sort of confusion that he can create. We know Andy Reid's going to scheme him up well, and I think that this is an opportunity to maybe put some stuff on tape with Noah Gray, especially in motion, that could kind of give defensive coordinators a lot to think about for the early part of the year here.
I think Justin Ross is a wild card to maybe get a few more snaps as your Y ISO type player. Now, he's not a Y, he's an X. And I think it's look, some of the value of the Y ISO stuff is how much chemistry Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey have with each other. And I think some of the route adjustments are unspoken. I don't think it's, it might be a tag, quote unquote, backside of the formation type play, but those guys may not even have to say anything based on what those guys see together. Like, they're just on a very ridiculous page. So it might be a little bit more defined if you're putting Justin Ross. You're telling them more what you're going to be trying to run on the backside of the play rather than that just kind of natural adjustment those two seem to kind of make audible wise and adjustment wise. But hey, that's your best Y ISO, X ISO type guy. If you're going to play 3x1 and you want that kind of guy, Justin Ross might be a sneaky addition to a few more packages, should we say. I know it's a little bit late and try to rely on a rookie, but also there's some skill there that can help over there a little bit. So that's something to watch. We're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Hey guys, it's Benny Heiss from Benny and the Bets, and when it comes to improving your golf performance, there is nothing quite like a PXG custom club fitting experience with a true PXG fitting specialist. This data-driven fitting is going to help determine the right club heads, perfect loft, lie, and shafts to be able to completely transform and change your game, and also lower your scores in the process. So no matter your skill level, you can be fitted for PXG's flagship Gen 6 clubs. They're designed to deliver incredible gains in distance, accuracy, and forgiveness. And for a limited time, you can use the code PXG75 when you sign up for a custom fit and get 75% off your fitting at pxg.com. Or you can give their store in Kansas City a call at 913-396-6100.
All right, so the Chiefs have two new additions at the offensive tackle position. That's some of the big turnover that's happened on the offensive side of the ball. Donovan Smith in at left tackle, the big signee Jawan Taylor at right tackle. They are in for quite the challenge off the top. Aiden Hutchinson, and I say both of them because Aiden Hutchinson has lined up a lot of different places on that front. I think Jawan Taylor is probably going to be carrying the bigger burden when it's all said and done. But this is a game wrecker edge player. The Chiefs tackles, their new tackles, are going to get tested immediately, Maddie.
Yeah. Oh, so are they? I mean, yes, they are. But also, Aiden Hutchinson's the only guy, though. It's just Aiden Hutchinson. Yeah, sure. James Houston had a couple sacks last year, right? And he's worth mentioning. But the Lions' second leading pass rusher last year in terms of pressures was John Kaminsky. I don't think the Lions pass rush is that dangerous. I think Aiden Hutchinson is a very good player, but I don't think Aiden Hutchinson in his second year in the NFL is take over a game good as of right now. Wait, that's questionable? Interesting.
I think, man, I thought he was pretty good last year. Taking a big step. These dudes,
Take over a
these dudes
game?
tend to do that.
I don't think I'm ready for that talk yet. They do
I hope
get
we don't
Charles
have to
Harris
go.
back.
I hope we don't have to point back to this clip at all.
Charles
ever.
Harris is coming back, and that's a guy to come back from injury. He was good for them 2 years ago. It's like, I'm not saying that the Lions pass rush is bad by any stretch. I just don't think I don't think this is like, oh, the Chiefs pass protection is about to get really tested. I especially think Hutchinson, pretty good matchup for Donovan Smith when they're matched up with each other. He's not the bendiest rusher. He's not the fastest guy to win up the edge. He's not a speed rusher, right? That plays into Donovan Smith's hands a little bit more. I'm more intrigued to see how Jawan Taylor handles kind of like the power rushing and the effort level that Aiden Hutchinson gives. But again, I don't know if he's the kind of guy that's just going to beat either one of those guys like a drum and really impact the game over and over again. So I feel pretty good about this matchup for the Chiefs offensive tackles. I just need them to go out there and do that and not make somebody pull this clip for everything I just said.
The Lions last year had a really high pressure rate. It was a top 10 pressure rate in the NFL, and were second in the league in hurries. And yet they were in the bottom half of the league in sacks. Like, you look at those numbers and you look at the sacks, you look at Aiden Hutchinson, James Houston finished really strong. Like, you look at the numbers and you say, oh, that's not that impressive, but they were getting to the quarterback. They were affecting the quarterback plenty. They just weren't closing the deal. And so that's really what you're looking at there. It was still an effective pass rush. It still got home a lot. The secondary was awful. There's a reason why they were 31st in NEA. There's a reason why they were so far down on all the passing defense stats, despite all these pressures, despite all of this hurry, So if the Chiefs can nullify that, the opportunities are there. They made some upgrades in their secondary, but I wouldn't say that this secondary got overhauled to the point where I'm like, oh, wow, it's really good now. If they were getting pressure on teams last year at the clip that they were, and those offenses were still able to complete passes, were still able to move the chains at the rate that they were, making a couple smaller upgrades in the secondary versus some massive upgrades for the Chiefs in offensive tackle this year, in my opinion, I think that kind of nullifies those sorts of things and maybe even tilt it towards the Chiefs. I would be a little bit worried if I were the Lions here, because you needed that pass rush to disrupt and try and get off the field. Didn't do it very often, but try and get off the field last year. And now you're going up against a team that has one of the best right tackles in the league, has a guy that looked really good in the preseason, and Donovan Smith at left tackle there. And you're going up against a slew of wide receivers, and the Chiefs are just going to keep throwing fresh guys out there. It could get a little scary in a hurry, but it's going to start, because I don't know that they're going to be able to affect the passer in the way that they did last year against the Chiefs specifically.
I certainly hope not. Let's move on. Explosive plays. What a great transition.
I didn't want to say real quick. I thought you were going to talk, or I would have jumped in earlier. Okay. James Houston is, yes, somebody mentioned James Houston in the chat. Very good pass rusher. He's their speedy guy, right? He's the guy that might give Donovan Smith some trouble. There was also rumors that the Lions might cut James Houston and were maybe considering trading him.
I did not get that, man.
I don't get it either. So I don't know how much he's going to be in the rotation is all. That's why I skipped over him a little bit. But yeah, if you want a matchup to really watch, I think Hutchinson against Taylor is probably the best matchup for the Lions. Number 2 might be Houston versus Donovan Smith, because those two rushers probably have a little bit of like a power and then speed advantage versus their counterparts. But again, I expect the Chiefs' offensive tackles to be fine. Okay, Kent, sorry. You can continue to move us along the show now.
No, we'll move on. How about that? Explosive plays, I think, is another thing that we're kind of talking about. And this is a Lions defense that gave up a lot of points last year. And yes, the Lions offense was plenty good. They also were playing from behind a lot. And partially because they were getting stomped early in games, slowed down enough, and the Lions defense didn't really have a ton of answers. They were giving up a lot of points, putting them in some real bad situations to make things interesting at the end. Got to credit that fight, though. Am I right? But I think explosive plays, especially, with the questions surrounding Travis Kelce, there's definitely some guys that can still generate some explosive plays for this team. I think some chunk plays could be really valuable for this team on offense, Matthew.
No, absolutely. I pulled it up here. The Lions were 3rd to last in the league in terms of rushing yards per attempt. They were 2nd to last in the league in terms of passing yards per attempt, right? So When teams tried to do anything against the Lions, they were pretty darn successful, no matter what, right? So explosive plays can be the run or the pass game. To Craig's point earlier, I do think they added some guys in the secondary, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Cam Sutton, Brian Branch. Like they added guys to maybe make it better, but it sounds like Emmanuel Mosley isn't going to play. So Jerry Jones, not
Jacobs.
that Jerry Jones,
Jerry Jacobs.
Jerry Jacobs. Yeah, who is that?
Can't even dignify him with his last name.
Who is that? He went to Arkansas. That was the confusion about Jerry Jones, Kent. So anyway, don't know who he is. He's starting cornerback for them, right? Right? Don't know who he is. He's the starting quarterback. They have brought in guys to help, but like this secondary isn't elite. They added some guys to help, but they are not elite. Do we really think the Chiefs are going to struggle to move the ball through the air? Will they be able to manufacture some plays down the field? More importantly, what does the Chiefs run game do? And I don't care about running the ball 20 sometimes. Can they break some explosive plays off against a defense that allowed plenty of explosive plays in the run game? We talked about the pass rush. Isaiah Buggs, apparently not playing in this game. I mean, are they going to stop the rush on the inside? Like, I don't know. This seems like a game where the Chiefs run game could look pretty good if they decide to lean into it as well.
Yeah, I like that they tried to upgrade the secondary. Cam Sutton's a good football player. Like, I'm a big fan of Cam Sutton. Kicks down the slot very regularly. Brian Branch is a guy that we really, really liked coming out of college. Currently listed on the Lions depth chart as like their starting nickelback with CJ Gardner-Johnson, another addition coming in at safety. Gardner-Johnson last year had a really good year for the Philadelphia Eagles behind an all-time line out there in the secondary. He also gave up the most touchdowns of his career. Brian Branch did not run particularly fast. That athleticism looked a little bit limited. That football IQ is off the charts, but he was a little bit limited there. If the Chiefs can put some burst, some explosion there in the slot, can get a little bit vertical like they have so far with like Rashee Rice, Richie James, even a little bit of Sky Moore there is plenty of separation that can occur even with these additions out there. That's ignoring some of the other pieces there that aren't up to those standards right there. So I can see explosive plays. I can see a lot of yak, especially with Rashee Rice, like get him going across the middle of the field, hit him and have him continue into the secondary. I can see plenty of avenues for this team to create the explosive plays. But yeah, I'm with Maddie. I want to see, does Isaiah Pacheco now all of a sudden with this defensive line not having some of the same, kind of impact in the middle there, is Isaiah Pacheco going to be able to hit the hole and go for 10 more regularly than maybe we have seen in the past? I can see that definitely happening there. So I think those are on offer this year. I think the Lions are going to be better on defense this year. Certainly, they can't get much worse from last year, but I do think that this is just not a particularly good matchup to try and stop this Chiefs offense that can get vertical, can create explosives at a really high clip. And the matchups just aren't in their favor, in my opinion.
It's just like a little unpredictability to what they're going to get out of this offensive skill group too, because MVS is the only one that's kind of the known commodity, right? Everything else is pretty unknown within this offense. And there's a lot of them. Very fascinated by that, especially with the Travis Kelce news. How do they utilize some of these guys? What have they held back? What do they like the strengths of some of these players? I don't think that's the one thing that I don't have a good pulse on from the preseason and from training camp is just what they want to do with all of these guys. And so that is going to be something that is very interesting, I think, off the top. Players to
Something
watch
else that stands out to me for explosive plays is this isn't a fast secondary. These guys, like almost everybody in the secondary ran like right around like a 4.5, which isn't slow, but like this is not a particularly fast secondary. You want to say there's a team that the Chiefs can get the ball up over their head or spread them out and force them to make tackles in the open field. This is the kind of team you want to see them do that to. I am so sorry to cut you off, Kent, but sometimes
during a sponsored segment.
I save some nuggets to come back, and you just try to right on out of it when I have other stuff in the holster, buddy.
Right.
We are so back. We are so back.
Kent wants to get out of here in 18 minutes, and I want to be here for 68 minutes. It's perfect. But yeah, I just want to talk about the lack of team speed for the Lions in the secondary.
Peter Yadrich is hoping for an extra minute.
No, he doesn't get it.
Can I continue?
Kent stole it.
Can I continue this sponsored segment now? Cool. Awesome. Players to Watch is presented by Tickets for Less. If you go to ticketsforless.com and use promo code KCSN, you will get the absolute best discount you possibly can on Tickets for Less. Always when you use promo code KCSN, that is how you're going to get your Chiefs tickets or any other tickets that you might need here. Our players to watch, Craig, who you got?
I got Sky Moore here. Listen, the Lions are going to play physical in the secondary by adding CJ Gardner-Johnson, by adding Brian Branch, by adding Cam Sutton. Those guys are going to come up. They're going to hit. They're going to press. They are going to talk too, especially CJ Gardner-Johnson.
Cope,
I want to
CJ.
see what Sky Moore brings to the table in that scenario. I want to see how he handles this in year 2. I think the Chiefs have placed a lot of expectations on him. They've said how much he's developed between year 1 and year 2. You are going up against a secondary that's going to be feisty, and especially in the middle of the field, they are going to be especially feisty coming downhill, fill in the alley. Sky Moore, if he gets lots of targets in the intermediate area of the field, he holds his own there. I think we can see a big path forward for him in year 2, and I can see a big game for Sky Moore this week.
One of the few players that I don't think we've talked about yet has been Rashee Rice. And I think he's a guy that might secretly have, low-key have a little bit of an impact if Travis Kelce's unable to go. Not that you would use him in the same way, right? That's one of the few ways the Chiefs didn't use him as like a possession receiver that's working on timing routes. But they did get him involved a lot kind of over the middle of the field. They got him involved a lot in the short to intermediate areas, just a lot of the same areas on the field that a Travis Kelce would operate in, that Juju Smith-Schuster operated in. And more specifically, they got him the ball on the move, like with places to run, to create some yards after the catch. And that's clearly something they foresee in his future. So you want to get some of those crossing routes, whether they're shallows or a little bit deeper. And instead of being able to hit Kelce on them 3-4 times in a game, you want to give a shot to Rice and see what he does. I think this might be a game that they could rush him onto the field a little bit earlier than they wanted to because of the loss of Kelce, trying to find another dynamic option over the middle of the field, or just another dynamic player to put the ball in their hands with some size and some dog in them. And that's Rashee Rice. So I think that he might have, a little bit bigger snap count going into this game than I would have thought as of 2 days ago.
I try not to invoke Patrick LaVon Mahomes too much.
We're in week
1.
Week 1.
I'm doing it. There's a few reasons. First off, Patrick Mahomes in week 1 games, 5-0 record, 1,542 yards, 18 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 33.9 passer rating. I got some more fun stats for that. He's undefeated, obviously, and they have been very successful. They have not scored less than 33 points in 5 games under Patrick Mahomes as a starting quarterback in week 1. I think there's a lot going on with this team right now. And I think, obviously there's some drama. Obviously there's some injuries, but the most important player in the world is still playing. And I think you are going to get a run-of-the-mill, scorched earth performance from someone who's probably sick of all the drama, who's probably sick of all the noise about all the receivers and whether or not they're going to be anything. And he's ready to make a statement again. Rant's not coming out quite yet. He might come out a little bit later. But I have Patrick Mahomes as the player to watch on this because it's going to be fascinating to watch him navigate a lot of new players and find success. I think he's going to. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch him in week 1. I can't wait. Can you believe we've had 7 months without an NFL game? It's crazy, right? Well, good thing that's over because the NFL is here and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is giving you a can't miss offer for week 1. This week, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5 on any NFL game. DraftKings is hooking everyone up with game day greatness. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every single game day this September. Check the app to see what you get. Download now and use code KCSN to sign up. That's code KCSN. New customers can take home $200 in bonus bets instantly just for betting $5. That's code KCSN. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. See dkng.co/football for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. It is time to go to the defensive side of the ball. Craig has perked up in a big way.
Yeah.
Big perk guy. Craig, does Spags run more coverage to start this season?
God, I hope so. We spent all of last year watching static cover 2 for most of the year, and it worked. Like with all those rookies on the field, like that's what they needed to do to keep all the communication right, keep a lid on everything. It worked well enough. Obviously, it did. They won a Super Bowl, even with that defense giving up all those points in that game. However, they are in year 2 with Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, Trent McDuffie, Brian Cook, and Justin Reed. Yes, L'Jarius Sneed is there as well. He's not in year 2 of the system. 5 guys finally coming back for year 2 in the system, coming off of a Super Bowl performance, keeping that motivation high. I think they've had all offseason to do this. We saw a few blips of it in the preseason. I think Steve Spagnuolo is opening the playbook. It's certainly not going to be quite as basic as it was last year. I think they're going to get into some of the stuff that they didn't feel comfortable calling and running as much last year. We're going to see more, 3-match coverages. We're going to see more cover 1 with, just man under stuff, man free. They ran a lot more of it in the preseason than just the kind of static cover 2 stuff that we saw last year. I think they're going to mix it up enough for this defense to confuse quarterbacks. And so quarterbacks aren't just dropping back and going, oh, yep, here it is again. I know what it is. It's a miracle that pass rush was effective with all that behind there. But I think we're going to see more. And I think we're going to get back to what Spags does more, regularly throughout his career as a defensive coordinator, mixing it up, keeping it exotic, especially on third downs. I just think what we saw last year was so outside the norm that we're going to see a full course correction back almost entirely the other way with this season and year 2 with these guys.
Well, and it's going to tie into something that we talk about later, but they kind of might have to, right? Like when you probably won't have, especially tomorrow night, the 4-man rush that they had for much of last season, you are not going to be able to sit back and play relatively static coverage and just be sound on the back end, right? You're going to have to force mistakes. You're going to have to force tight coverage because if not, the opponent might have a little bit more time to just kind of lob the ball around and pick and choose their spots. So it will be up to Spags and this defense to force things, to confuse the Detroit Lions passing attack with their coverage drops, with their coverages on defense. And I look around I don't know if the Chiefs linebackers and safety room, I think, are the most universal in terms of they can play zone or man great. They can play single high, 2 high, whatever, man-to-man, whatever it may be. But then I go back and look at those Giants defenses in 2016 and 2017. Landon Collins was great. Nobody ever confused Landon Collins for a rangy single high safety.
No.
Or a guy to drop down on the slot and play man coverage on a slot receiver. But by golly, if Spags didn't line him as a strong safety in the box and then have him drop to the opposite side deep half once or twice a game just because, it's stuff like that needs to return. That's the kind of stuff that needs to come back. Justin Reed, Brian Cook, if L'Jarius Sneed or Trent McDuffie in the slot, these guys need to be doing more stuff than what they did last year. And I use stuff very loosely because there's a broad spectrum of things that Steve Spagnuolo has done, from blitz to drop corners to play safety, to have safeties come down and play man, to have linebackers shoot out to the flat. They do all sorts of things that kind of went away last year. I think this year they need to bring it back. They need to make, especially in this game, Jared Goff, who really likes the picture to look one way and stay that way, they need to change that on him. Jared Goff loves it if you show him the coverage before the play starts and don't change it. But by God, the second you change it, Buddy turns into a pumpkin real fast. So they should be doing everything they can to late rotate, to change the looks after the ball comes back to him, because I think that's where they really get in trouble throwing the ball at the very least.
I just kind of like how Maddie looked off camera, just kind of into the distance for that.
It's out here. It's the picture. It's out here.
Professional.
Yeah, except for the audio listeners. Do you guys feel like the Chiefs are very selective about what they say in their press conferences, their coaches, their players? You think they're pretty selective in what they say, right?
Wait, an Andy Reid team? No,
Yeah.
never. Yeah.
Not on their
So
own podcasts.
we've actively heard, some commentary about some of the young defensive backs on this team, sophomores. I think there's reasons for that. I think they've really wanted to challenge that second year group to continue to ascend, to continue to be better, to not rest on what they did their rookie year, which is why you saw Najee Johnson, which is why you've seen Nick Jones. You've seen so many other players kind of getting some run ahead of these guys, is because the Chiefs are putting some emphasis on this group because they need to trust them so they can get more elaborate with their scheme. Exactly what you guys are talking about here. The trust in the back end to be able to hold up in some of these pressure looks that they want to try to try to give. They have to trust that group to be able to do it. That's why you saw a lot of static coverage. They're not trying to throw too much at them, but they have to. So I do think that some of what we've seen from Steve Spagnuolo in the media, in some of the rotations early in training camp, were a message to these guys to push on them, to continue to grow, to continue to push through that sophomore slump that happens to a lot of players because they need them desperately to play at a high level, especially with the absence of Chris Jones.
Yeah, before we jump off of this, Jared Goff has the 5th worst EPA per throw when he held onto the ball for longer than 4 seconds.
Wow.
Like, you're back there, you're having to try and dissect and deal with the secondary, evaluate the full picture after the snap and all of that. 5th worst EPA per throw in the NFL last year. That's it. If you're forcing him to hold on to the ball, to Manny's point, you're changing the picture. If all of that's happening, he's having to hold on to the ball a little bit longer, it just tanks. Conversely, we're used to in Kansas City, the longer that Patrick Mahomes has the ball, the crazier the highlight's going to be.
Scarier the hours get for everybody else.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the opposite of that, though, because I believe you. Hey, hold on to the ball longer. But also, Jared Goff can get sped up a little bit, too. Like, it works on both ends. Like, if he's on time, great. But if you can beat him with pressure, and if you can get him pressured, good things will happen for your offense too, Craig.
Yeah, absolutely. Jared Goff was pressured second least in the NFL last year. He was blitzed 5th highest in the NFL. That is a testament not only to his ability to get the ball out quick, but also this offensive line, which is really good. Like, you look at this, it's young. It may not have a whole bunch of guys that you recognize on it, but it is really good. And that's how they were
how quickly the Lions were out of games and having to play from behind. But anyways,
listen, he got the ball out well. That offense would hum, and they did a really good job against the blitz. And this isn't just last year. Jared Goff has been pretty good against the blitz for most of his career. He has had a really high EPA per dropback. He is right there with a Mahomes in that stat there. The Chiefs are going to have to blitz in order to get some of the pressure that we have come to expect. We talked about it earlier this week with L'Jarius Sneed coming out of the slot. They have to figure out how to pressure Jared Goff without a Chris Jones in the mix. And yes, I love these young defensive ends. I love the potential they have. This is a really good offensive line, and expecting them to line up and win time after time is unreasonable here. So I think Spagnuolo is going to blitz. I think he's going to bring the heat. This is like immovable object versus, unstoppable force here, because this Lions team is really good at beating the blitz. Like I last year, despite all the injuries, despite the revolving cast at wide receiver at times, they were just really, really good at doing so. And Jared Goff is as well. So playing some of those trap coverages on the front side when you've got a slot blitzer from the backside, trying to reduce some of the ability for him to quickly throw a hot, has to be paramount, maybe even sacrificing a deeper throw because you want to get that pressure. You want to hit him. You want him to feel Arrowhead, because Jared Goff is not as good on the road as he is at home. A lot of those stats have been floating around this week. you got to get the crowd into this game. You got to get him out of this game a little bit more so that you can speed that up through the blitz and try and affect him, because last year teams tried to do that and they just weren't able to get home as often as you would expect.
Yeah, I mean, last year the NFL kind of saw a trend of teams blitzing less in general, right? I believe it was from Warren Sharp, kind of for the way that he had it seen from True Media. The teams blitzed on just 25.3% of the time last year, which was the lowest since 2013. That was about 2 percentage points back from a couple seasons ago. Like, that's pretty significant. And the Chiefs, according to Matt Bowen, had their blitz rate at 25.8%. So they were almost right there at like what the league average is going to be. That's pretty low for a Steve Spagnuolo-led team. I would imagine every other year in Kansas City up to that point, he was much higher up above what the league average would be, right? Felt like blitz percentage drifted closer to league average last year, and league average also drifted down. So the Chiefs backed off of blitzing last year. There's one quarterback that the Chiefs are playing tomorrow that is very bad versus the blitz when it gets home, but it has to get home. That is a key part. I just think the Chiefs are going to struggle get this pressure with the front four. This is a very good offensive line. The Chiefs are missing, there's no way two ways about it, their two best pass rushers on this defensive front. They're both gone. They don't really have like an ace up the sleeve coming in. Maybe a rookie or a second-year guy hits the ground running and is ready to really take that step forward this year. Maybe not, though, right? It's like I feel like they really will have to dial into the blitzing. I would expect a lot of coverage shells, a lot of coverage disguising that we just talked about, followed by blitzing. And whether they're hiding the blitzes or showing the blitzes, just trying to get into Jared Goff's head. Then you start getting into sim pressures. And then now you're showing pressure, but then you're dropping out. But then another play, you're showing pressure and bring it. It's all about mind games. Jared Goff is a guy who I think you do have to beat his mind. If he's comfortable, Jared Goff's a good quarterback. Pressure, not pressure, getting home, blitzing, not blue, whatever it is. If he's comfortable, he's going to be pretty good. But the moment you can make him start to second guess, he starts to struggle. That's up to the Chiefs this year. And I don't think they can do that by being as complacent as they were with the blitzing or the 4-man pass rush last season.
Yeah, Jared Goff deserves his flowers. He's played a lot better than I think a lot of people want to give him credit for. I get why the Lions wanted to stick with him a little bit, because he started to play better and better football as the season went on. And yeah, I think he's done a lot of great things with his opportunity. Good thing for the Chiefs is Steve Spagnuolo is a little bit unpredictable too. And so in that regard, it could be a very fun week when it comes to that. You might be able to catch him a couple of times. Plays on the football is going to be quite important. If you get an opportunity, the Chiefs need to make sure that they are ending that possession by turning the ball over. You can't miss out on opportunities if you're going to get them. You know, there's been a lot of mystery, I think, about ultimately what the Chiefs are going to show with their linebackers specifically, but just personnel period. Base, dime personnel. What do we think we're looking at, Maddie?
Well, what do I want to be looking at? What
do you think? No, what do you think you're seeing?
I think we're seeing exactly what we've seen in the preseason and in training camp. I think your base personnel is the three guys that have been here. It's going to be Nick Bolton, Willie Gay, and Leo Chenal. I think there might be certain drives at which you see Drew Tranquill come in for the base package stuff, especially maybe if the Lions are having success throwing the ball. If the Lions are forcing the Chiefs into base personnel and then throwing out of it a la the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the Super Bowl a couple years ago, you might get Drew Tranquill to come in there. But I'm not buying Drew Tranquill into the nickel linebacker spot or the dime linebacker spot until I see it. I'm going to want it. I'm pounding the table for it. I thought that's why he was brought in. We just haven't got to see it while the other linebackers are healthy and available. So until that, I think it's the same linebacker rotation as it was last year with Drew Tranquill as the guy that we all want to see get on the field and just simply doesn't.
I'm saying that Drew Tranquill starting at the dime linebacker role. I'm going against Maddie. I'm going to be that guy. But looking at the defensive line here, I think is going to be another key as part of this base versus dime personnel. Are we going to see Turk Wharton as a starting 3-tech? Or are we going to see them go heavier? This is, again, a good offensive line that is perfectly capable of washing defenders out and climbing to the second level and making life rough with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs running the ball behind him. Like, they could lean on the run game a little bit. Do the Chiefs decide, hey, Derek Nottie, Keandre Coburn, Neil Farrell. Guess what? You're just eating space. Like, go out there, occupy, get 2 gaps. Let's let Willie Gay, let's let Nick Bolton run behind them and try and clean up behind these guys. I could see this team really leaning on very heavy personnel on first and second downs, fully knowing that, hey, the pressure's probably not getting home anyway with 4. And on top of that, you're going to be playing some coverages behind him, trying to confuse Jared Goff a little bit. Why don't we beef up the middle on first and second downs, ensure we get to a 3rd and long situation a little bit more, and then all of a sudden we've got George Karlaftis, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, Turk Wharton, Mike Dana coming in there as your dime rushers. Yeah, that's not somebody that you're not going to look up and down that line and be like, oh, wow, these guys are definitely going to beat this offensive line. But get to that 3rd and long, get the games going, get some of that communication stretched on that offensive line, and use some of the burst that this team does have with a couple of those defensive linemen. I could see that happening there in the dime. I'm just very curious how they come out there, especially early on in some of the heavy personnel, how those interior defensive linemen look.
It's time for Players to Watch, presented by Tickets for Less. And I have selectively restrained some of my Drew Tranquill discourse. I stand with Craig. I believe he is going to be in the dime. You heard Steve Spagnuolo talking a little bit about the intelligence of some of his players. He singled out 2. Nick Bolton, Drew Tranquill. I think they've been holding back things on Drew Tranquill, specifically the way they've been holding some stuff back on Sky Moore on the offensive side of the ball. I think Drew Tranquill is a big factor in this game. He's going to factor into my game prediction here in a little bit. Give me Drew Tranquill in sub packages as the player to watch on the defensive side of the ball for me.
Okay. I know I just mentioned that this 4-man rush is probably not getting home very often. George Karlaftis in year 2 stands a chance to really stake his claim on what he can do. This is a very good offensive line. It doesn't matter if he lines up against Taylor Decker or if he lines up against Penei Sewell. Those are both really good tackles that he's got to play crisp, clean football in order to win quickly. Jared Goff wants to get the ball out quick. It could be a very frustrating day for George Karlaftis. But if he makes his impact felt, if we are seeing George Karlaftis flash regularly against this offensive line, big year for George Karlaftis coming here. We've already seen the progression. The hands are getting better. We're seeing him turn a little bit better, working with Bobby Stroop, trying to get a little bit more flexibility. Year 2 for George Karlaftis could bury a lot of these concerns about the pass rush immediately by coming out there and having a great performance against a great offensive line.
So I want to go on record. I hope the Chiefs go with Drew Tranquill as a dime linebacker. I'm just not going to believe until I see it. That's just where we're
I'm
falling
buying
down.
it. I'm in. Say less.
There's nothing to buy, but okay. I mean, like that's what, anyway. My player to watch is Justin Reed. I'm going to go with the safety here. I'm going to go through the Chiefs kind of play around as their strong safety the majority of the time because, quite frankly, the Lions' biggest receiving threats are Amon-Ra St. Brown, slot player, works over the middle of the field, short to intermediate. Rookie tight end Sam Laporta, middle of the field, short to intermediate, and Jahmyr Gibbs, mostly short, but another guy that's going to kind of not be a vertical receiver. Those are tasks that often get put on a safety or a linebacker to cover and to take away. I think Justin Reed will be in the position the most often to do that. And then we transition over to the run game. The Lions run concepts are amazing. We didn't spend enough time talking about trying to stop the Lions run game. And I think it's because we just kind of know the Chiefs won't. I don't know how else to say it. The Lions run game is really good. The Lions offensive line also really darn good, and they do a lot of different stuff in that run game. Ben Johnson is amazing with what he's got cooking up there. So if the Chiefs are to slow down the run game, I think it will be somebody like Justin Reed running the alley or up to a defensive back, whether it's a corner, Reed, Cook, whoever, holding contain on the outside and really being a force player as a secondary player and not missing tackles. I think this is a game where Justin Reed really needs to put his stamp on it on the back end because a lot of how the Lions will hurt you is directly kind of related to where a Steve Spagnuolo strong safety can make his biggest impact. So give me Justin Reed for a big game in this one.
Players to Watch is presented by Tickets for Less. Remember, promo code KCSN will always give you the deepest discount you can get at Tickets for Less for your Chiefs tickets. Make sure you are going to Tickets for Less and using promo code KCSN for the deepest discount you can always get on their site. Boys, it's been a while. since we've had to make a prediction on a game. I know I've made Maddie do a couple for the preseason, but now it counts. It is prediction time. Craig, what do you have in this game?
Listen, this is going to be a higher scoring game than I want it to be as a defensive guy. This Lions offense is good. This offensive line is good. Their running game is good. Jared Goff, when he's dialed in, is good. I can see them putting up points against this Chiefs defense, and I'm not really going to sweat what the Chiefs defense looks like against this good offense. However, Patrick Mahomes is on the other side of the football. And yeah, Travis Kelce may be limited. He may not play at all. This offense with Andy Reid at the helm in week 1 has been waiting to unleash like he does every single year. Andy Reid has been sitting around all offseason coming up with new creative ways to use these weapons, these new ones specifically, not just Travis Kelce, but these new ones in ways that we haven't even considered yet, so that he can get the best matchups on the field and give defensive coordinators nightmares for the first 8 weeks of the season. We see it every single year. I expect it again. I expect a big offensive performance. I expect the defense to do just enough and Arrowhead to be just loud enough to affect this Lions offense from being at their peak performance. I am still going to say that the Lions score 27 points because they're that good of an offense, but the Chiefs are running out of here with 35 and a win.
Woo. Okay. Parts of me want to agree with Craig here on this one, right? I think Andy Reid sits here all off season. He's working on stuff. He's getting the offensive tweaks in, and we've seen it kind of every year, especially with Patrick Mahomes. This offense kind of hits the ground running, right? There is no slog to start the season, even with all these new parts of like we saw last year or different years of the Tyreek Hill injuries, whatever it may be. Week 1 is not an issue. I don't think that's going to be an issue this year. New offensive line, fine. They've been working on it. New weapons, fine. They've all been working together, minus Kadarius Toney, who I still maintain is a drop-in and just go be an athlete player for them, right? This team will be ready for week 1 offensively. They are going to put up points. We talked a lot. This Lions defense, I don't think is going to provide that much resistance to the Chiefs offense. If it, for whatever reason, the Chiefs offense doesn't score, it is going to be because they're shooting themselves in the foot, not really the Lions stopping them. I don't think the Lions have an answer for this Chiefs offense. The problem is I don't know what kind of answer the Chiefs defense will have for the Lions offense either, especially if the Lions can really gear down and get into that run game, play a little ball control. And I don't mean try to limit this game's possessions or whatever that whole nonsense is to keep the Chiefs offense off the field. I just mean to be more physical than the Chiefs defense. I mean, push them around and just run the ball, get deep into the play action game. I could see a shootout in this one. I honestly could see this being a fireworks type game. I talked about the beginning, watching a little bit of college football last week and how fun it was. That kickoff to Saturday was a barn burner between Colorado and TCU. This Chiefs-Lions game might be similar. We might be getting a lot of points without a ton of good defense in this. I'm going for it. I think we're getting a shootout. I think we're getting a mini repeat of the Goff versus Mahomes the first time around. We're going. Chiefs are coming in with 40 points. And the Detroit Lions are coming in at 31. Chiefs win by 9. Big win, but I think we're getting a lot of points on the board.
So, like we hear a lot of people say players will say I don't pay attention to social media. I don't lies. Okay. There's a lot of them that are paying attention to social media. And if they're as sick of this offseason and this drama as I am, then I think they're ready to go hit some people in the mouth. I think the chip on the shoulder of the defense might come from inside. I think this is a motivated group, and you hear Steve Spagnuolo talking about them and how motivated, how eager, how focused, how intensive this group is. I think they're sick of hearing all this talk about how valuable Chris Jones is to the totality of this defense. And I'm not trying to diminish it, but if you want to tell me that the rest of the players don't take it a little bit personally, I don't believe you. I think this group is motivated by what they've had to endure, the questions they've had to endure, the drama that they've had to endure, the distraction that they have had to endure this all offseason. And I know it is a huge loss to deal with Chris Jones, but you want to know what a fun statement could be for the rest of the guys in those locker room that sweated in St. Joseph, that went through this entire offseason process, that busted their butt in preparation for this opportunity? It would be to shut some people up. I think they're going to do it. And guess what? I think the guy on the other side of the ball, Patrick LaVon Mahomes, I think he's sick of it too. I think it'd be a fun statement if the Chiefs go out and do what they do in week 1, despite not having Travis Kelce or in a limited capacity, and despite not having Chris Jones. You want to send a statement? You want to lose some leverage? You want to get Chris Jones into the building? Go win a ball game and go win it convincingly. 35-23, the Chiefs are winning. Drew Tranquill is getting an interception late in the game to keep this game from getting a little bit closer. The Chiefs are covering. The Chiefs are bopping the Detroit Lions like they do all the other teams that they play week 1, and a message is sent. 1-0. We'll talk to you after a Chiefs win on Thursday night. We'll catch you later.
Get them.